lot of buzz being made as Chicago was added to Governor Greg Abbott's busing plan of busing illegal aliens from Texas to cities like Washington, D.C. and New York. But it does come with a price. Here to talk about that and some other issues facing the state, we've got Tim Hardin, president of Texas for Fiscal Responsibility. Tim, we've seen this plan started in April where we've been busing these illegal aliens, and they've gone to New York City, they've gone to Washington, D.C. Now you've got them going to Chicago. And I think it's been an interesting thing to watch from two different sides. On one hand, the reaction from these leftist mayors has been very interesting, as I think they've sort of played into the hand in some ways of Texas and Governor Abbott. But at the same time, this does come with an actual cost to taxpayers.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. It does, of course. The number we've heard quoted is $1,400. I think it's important to stipulate the kind of the rules behind this, which is, these people are voluntarily wanting to leave. So essentially, we're using tax dollars. We've spent millions already to give them a free ride wherever they would like to go. And I'm not sure I buy that most of the Democrat mayors are really that outraged. I think they're kind of playing into the narrative. Ultimately, this helps the Democrat agenda, and I think Abbott is actually playing into Joe Biden's agenda as well.
Yeah, I think you saw Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot recently, when the first bus of illegal aliens came to Chicago, said in one sentence Greg Abbott was a racist and had no morals for doing this. And then in the next sentence said, but we love having them here, and heck, maybe we'll send buses to go grab more Texans and move them up here.
Yeah, I think anyone who's been paying attention the last few years knows that the agenda on the left is going to be to declare amnesty at some point. And so we've had millions and millions of illegals flood into the country. And so the more we push them further into the country, eventually, if they're able to retain House or Senate, there's no doubt that Joe Biden will make a move for amnesty at some point if he's able to. And if we're just enabling this and pushing illegals further into the country, all we're doing is ultimately helping out these Democrat strongholds and maybe even giving them more representation in Congress.
And yeah, y'all had a analysis up recently on your website, TexasTaxpayers.com, looking at, again, this $1,400 per rider. Now, if you're kind of doing the math in your head, you're thinking that could actually be like a first-class ticket to any one of these cities for about half of that price, right? But you'll also talk about another solution. It's a solution that we've seen echoed by a number of conservative groups. We've seen it now echoed by the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which is, of course, declaring an invasion on the southern border and taking state action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the solution, right? If you look at what's going on and who's been successful in battling the Biden administration, of course, Ron DeSantis's name is always going to come up. And ultimately, the solution is a strong state and in defiance of the federal government. And so ultimately, we have someone like Kari Lake in Arizona who's promised to declare an invasion and deal with this, assuming she gets into the office in January. Almost all conservative groups are all echoing the same thing. They're demanding that Abbott declare an invasion. And quite honestly, let's move these people back where they came from, out of the country. It's the right thing to do. And honestly, we have the power to do that in a sovereign state.
Let me ask you this. We've got the Texas legislature, meeting this week. They're looking at extending this corporate welfare program. Okay, Chapter 313 is what it's called. Essentially, is this program that allows local school districts, local governments to offer tax breaks to companies at no cost to them. State pays for it. So ultimately, the entire state's on the hook for them. This is something that has been opposed by literally Republicans and Democrats, which doesn't happen very often anymore, I'd say. And yet lawmakers are still trying to revive this. Why is that?
That is a great question, especially for someone who claims to be a conservative. This is corporate welfare in every sense of the word, and we have people who are wasting money in these programs. I think the Houston Chronicle came out and estimated that every job that it's typically renewable energy that are getting these tax breaks in this corporate welfare. Every job, we're actually paying about $211,000 per job that we're adding with these.
Wow.
And I think the bigger thing is we've been screaming as homeowners for property tax relief. And we've been promised since 2019 that we're going to receive relief. Well, as things are panning out, they were hoping that a lot of cities were going to adopt this no new revenue rate. They're not. And so what's crazy is the amount of time and attention that someone like a 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗔𝗏 is using to promote bringing back these 313 abatements in corporate welfare, while all the while we're ignoring homeowners. We don't extend them the same courtesy to lower their property tax bills, but yet we will pick winners and losers from the government.
Yeah, and it should be said, this is a program that is literally set to expire at the end of the year, so the legislature will have to affirmatively resurrect it if they do come back. And yet, yeah, Speaker 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗏 talking a lot about it, even setting on Thursday of this week, setting a meeting of the House Ways and Means Committee to discuss, what kind of ways they could reform a new program for it. You mentioned that $27 billion surplus. I do want to ask you real quick before we go. We've had that number out there for a while. It's possible it could change a little bit, right, before we get into January, but it looks like that's going to be about it. We've recently seen Governor Greg Abbott says he wants to use at least half of that for property tax relief. You see Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick now saying he thinks that, it might be more than half of it that goes to property tax relief. What are your thoughts as we continue moving closer to the session, and what can citizens be doing to demand that relief?
Well, continuing what we have been doing, first and foremost, I mean, it's pretty obvious, when Dan Patrick comes out first and says, we're going to give about $4 billion. And that was met with backlash from grassroots activists everywhere. And then, of course, Abbott comes out and one-ups him and is like, hey, we're going to do half. And then now what happens? Patrick pivots and he's like, we'll do more than half. And this is always what happens when we engage our government effectively. And, there has never been a time in Texas politics that I've been involved, at least in the last 10 years or so, where the cries are louder for actual property tax relief, if not complete elimination of the immoral practice. That's where we've been. We want to see it eliminated. We want to see as much of this surplus used as possible. We were a fan of Representative Tom Oliver's bill in the second and third special, which would have dedicated 90% of all ongoing surpluses until M&O reach zero, which is the goal. We want to tie the legislature's hands by the law and put us on a path towards elimination. And so that's what we would like to see. So the answer from TFR is, as much as humanly possible, we want to use as much of this surplus to give taxpayers actual relief instead of just pleasantries.
Right. And it's already, look at the calendar, we're 3-4 months away to the legislative session, so it'll be here before we know it. Thank you so much, Tim.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
Hey, you made it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so that way you're notified next time we post a video and update to the channel. Thanks again.